Welcome into your extended weekend forecast here on 13 WMAZ Plus. Here we're going to break down your forecast day by day as we go Friday, Saturday into Sunday. Plan out any event-specific forecast that you need, and we'll talk about what's in store as we head into the full work week in that second week of September as we roll into Monday. So let's start it out with Future View, taking a look at a couple of scattered shower chances as we go into the late afternoon and evening time frame. 5 p.m. when, of course, we'll be out there at Tailgate 13, and many of you will probably be heading out to the stadiums, getting ready for all the football festivities tonight. Maybe just a very brief shower. If you do catch anything, it's only going to last a couple minutes in time. Then it's going to pass through, hopefully cool some of your numbers down just a touch. But then as we progress into the nighttime hours, hour by hour that we go into tonight, your rain chances will continue to decrease, but they are still in the near vicinity. It does look like our rain chances are a lot better farther up to the north for your Friday night plans, but we still could see our fair share of maybe 1, 2, or 3 isolated and scattered showers, not looking at anything in the way of thunderstorm potential as we go into your Friday night. As we transition into Saturday morning now, you can see some passing cloud cover, some partly cloudy skies to welcome you out the door, maybe as you're going outside, waking up, turning on College game day tomorrow morning. It is looking like a clear forecast until we get into the afternoon. And that's when our frontal boundary up to the north and the northwest is going to begin its push in. Now, this is the latest model run of Future View that just got updated as of the recording of this. So 2 p.m., maybe a few scattered showers in the picture, but I really think the frontal boundary itself, this is going to be right here behind this broken line of rain that does approach from the north and the northwest. 5 p.m. on Saturday, still looks like rain is finally making its entrance into northwest central Georgia. So we have the chance for a couple of scattered showers and maybe even some storms in nature. I don't have too much confidence in anything in the way of severe weather. It just may get a little bit loud and you might get a bit messy in terms of some heavy rainfall rates that could be enveloped within some of those storms. We transition into Saturday night now, and it looks like conditions clear out. That continues to be a very prominent theme with your forecast as those temperatures cool down, especially given for Friday and Saturday, because those are definitely going to feel like some summertime days. It does appear that we are going to see rain chances really dissipate and dissolve in nature as we go into the overnight hours when things are a little bit cooler. So we'll start out Sunday morning with a few clouds in the picture, and this window you saw the last time stamp around 8 a.m. all the way to 12 p.m., kind of that Sunday morning church forecast. If you have anything in the way of cloud cover, it looks like it's trying to clear out as we go into the afternoon. But your rain chances on Sunday are going to be greater over towards the east and the northeast. But not to say that the farther east that you live in central Georgia, you couldn't catch maybe a slim chance of a shower. Don't think anything in the way of storms will be in the way on Sunday. And you'll kind of see why the rain chances are going to be greater over towards the east as we talk about the humidity levels this weekend. So 92 for a high temperature on Friday. That's already going to be pretty warm. Basically the same forecast for your Saturday, just maybe a degree or 2 warmer. Now, when you factor in the slightly humid atmosphere, the feels like numbers are expected to climb somewhere in the mid to the upper 90s, both Friday and Saturday afternoons. Again, you saw that rain making its entrance a little bit later in the day on Saturday. So, of course, that's why we do hold on to the humidity. We are going to warm up for the first part of the afternoon before that rain and cloud cover makes an appearance. Slightly better chances of rain and a better chance of seeing some thunderstorms on Saturday. But like I said, only just a couple of rumbles of thunder that you may hear off in the distance, not looking and anticipating anything in the way of severe weather to interrupt your plans. Then going into Sunday, that 10% chance of rain looks like it's going to be Sunday night as of right now, and the high temperature back down into the 80s, but still 89 is feeling pretty much like 90 degrees, and your morning low temperatures both Saturday and Sunday mornings going to have a bit of a pleasant feel to them, but definitely not that fall feel that we did have at the beginning of the work week this past week. So all in all, you will see rain chances for your weekend outlook. I think the main thing that you need to know is, number one, it's going to be quite hot outside. Like I said, feels like numbers in the mid to maybe even upper 90s, but it's really just a period of a couple of hours each and every day that you do have those rain chances. For Friday, it's going to be the late afternoon time frame, so probably from around 4 to maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. We could have a stray shower or two still hanging in the picture into the nighttime, but overall the rain chances aren't that impressive. If you are heading out to football games, maybe just grab the raincoat and the umbrella just to be better safe than sorry. Saturday, I think most of the day is going to be dry until we transition into around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then going all the way to around 7 or 8 p.m. into the evening. That's kind of the window that we have the potential for rain, but it does look like the chances farther up to the northwest are going to be better than the rain chances down towards the south and the southeast. And then most of your Sundays should be suitable for any outdoor activities. All in all, not a complete washout and definitely the complete opposite of the forecast that we saw to kick off your Labor Day weekend on Friday and Saturday, where widespread rain was the case, plenty of cloud cover, and pretty dreary and messy conditions. So here's a look at the muggy meter. You will see the downtick in humidity as we go into next week. We'll talk about that in some more detail coming up. But right now, I want you to pay attention to the humidity levels Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Still remaining at noticeable levels and right there kind of on the line of dew point temperatures in the upper 60s and maybe the low 70s. We'll have some areas that are slightly more humid than others, and they'll be kind of enveloped in that dark green color that you see associated with the very muggy box. However, it will just kind of be more of a noticeable humidity for those areas hovering in the upper 60s. But this really tells a better picture of what's going on. The future view humidity graphic, it's going to fluctuate a lot over this weekend. We're going to have areas of dark green. We're going to have areas of light green, but any areas of dark green, they don't look like they're really staying put for an extended period of time. You see this influx in moisture coming in from the south as we kick off Saturday morning, but then take a look at that. It completely falls apart ahead of the frontal boundary moving in. It looks like there is sufficient moisture in the forecast, but then watch this. You can really get a great indication of this frontal boundary trying to settle in, because look at all of this drier air. There is no color whatsoever back over to the west and over into Mississippi. We're not seeing any shades of green, even light green in the forecast, but central Georgia is a bit of a dividing line. So it does look like maybe a bit of a northeasterly breeze could try to usher in whatever humidity remains up here in North Carolina and South Carolina into the eastern half of our area, but it is still going to be kind of a tale of two forecasts, where you are holding on to the humidity, where you do have dew point temperatures in the 70s as we go into Sunday night. That's where your rain chances are going to be a little bit better. Now let's talk about the winds and the wind gusts, because anytime we have a frontal boundary come through, we typically do have some pretty breezy conditions. Well, nothing really in the way of a breeze. Maybe Friday night we get a big sea breeze that tries to come off the Atlantic coast, but overall, not much in the way of winds. Pretty calm in nature, anywhere from about 4 to 8 miles per hour. And then you can get a very good picture of where the frontal boundary itself is to the northwest of us. We keep going throughout Saturday afternoon into the evening hours. There's going to be a thin line of where the winds maybe are a tad bit breezy. Overall, not looking at widespread gusty winds until we get into your Sunday, and mainly the later half of Sunday. I think a steady breeze, maybe anywhere with some gusts up to 15 miles per hour, maybe even up to 20 miles per hour, could be possible, especially given this graphic. You can see as we go into the overnight hours into really early on Monday morning, still holding on to breezes and some wind gusts up to 22, maybe 23 miles per hour. So it looks like it may take a while for those winds to settle in, and then it's going to be a bit of a pressure gradient that's causing some of these gusty winds. There's going to be higher pressure, which is filtering in behind that frontal boundary, and there's going to be low pressure down to towards the south. So the direction that these winds are moving, they flow from high pressure to low pressure. Right now it does look like high pressure is somewhere up here to the north and northeast of us, and there is some low pressure down towards the southwest of us. So taking a look at your football Friday night forecast, going to be a hot start at tailgate. Temperatures around 90 degrees, feels like numbers a little bit higher, somewhere in the low to mid 90s. I think tailgate time is going to be your best chance of catching one of those stray showers. It's going to be very light in nature, and it's not going to put much of a damper on your plans. But as you progress into kickoff time and getting into final score or overtime time, that's when we are looking at the rain chances to really get out of the picture. And we will see a steady cool down as we head into the cooler portions of the day right around sunset and past sunset. 83 by kickoff, and then into the upper 70s as you're wrapping up all your high school football games. But not only high school football, it is the whole football extravaganza this weekend. At long last, we are officially back, I think I can declare, because we've had high school football for a couple of weeks. Kicked off the week 1 of college football last weekend. Well, now we're adding the NFL into all of the fun. And all 3 of the main teams here in the state of Georgia are in town. Mercer football, they will be at 5 Star Stadium once again. Same time kickoff as last week. Obviously, That game didn't end the best with Presbyterian pulling the upset, but the Bears are looking to bounce back against Wofford on Saturday evening. So the kickoff going to be around 6 p.m. and that's when rain could have the potential for moving in with that frontal boundary for tailgate time just before the game. I think it's mainly just going to be a story of the heat. And then I really don't have much confidence in the rain chances holding together too far into central Georgia. So I think right there around kickoff, 6 to 7 p.m. may be your best chance at catching a stray shower in nature, a temperature of 90 before that front tries to move in. And take a look at how much you cool down over a 3-hour period. 90 down to 77 as you are wrapping up the game. And hopefully the Bears are ringing in win number 1 on the season, since the first week and week 0, that game did get ruled a no contest over in Montgomery. The Dogs are also still staying in Sanford this weekend after a very good beatdown of the Marshall Fighting Herd last weekend, squaring off against the Austin Peay Governors up in Sanford Stadium. So same time kickoff as last week, a 3:30 kickoff. Temperatures will continue to warm up steadily throughout tailgate into kickoff time, but then you have the possibility of rain just after kickoff. It all depends on what conditions that the front has to work with. Is it going to be humid? It's definitely going to be warm. But up in Athens right now, I think you still have a slim chance of a couple of showers. There is the potential for maybe even a lightning delay for a brief period, but it's not going to be a continuous widespread washout. So if you do have some thunderstorms in the picture, I do believe it's going to be a very brief lightning delay. And the good news is rain and cloud cover also going to cool those numbers down. How about this over a 3.5-hour period? As we're heading home and hopefully talking about a big blowout win for the Dogs once again, 75 degrees. So starting to clear out, seeing that last little bit of sunlight before the sun does begin to set at 7:52 in Athens this weekend. Now, Georgia Tech's football forecast, a bit different than the other two because Atlanta is farther to the northwest in the state. So Atlanta probably going to be the first to receive some rain from this frontal boundary that moves in. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets' first home game of the year against Gardner-Webb at Bobby Dodd Stadium. That is a 3:30 kickoff, temperatures around 90 degrees. And right now, I do believe, according to the timing we've seen amongst the models, I think that front's going to continue to push some rain in. Right there around kickoff, maybe just after kickoff, about an hour or so. Temperature of 90 should be expected right there around kickoff before the cloud cover and maybe potential showers and storms move in. Same thing with your forecast for Athens. If you come across a thunderstorm, it may result in about an hour or two lightning delay, but then after that, conditions will begin to clear out. So around 7 p.m. as you're heading home, or maybe just waiting on the third quarter to start if there is a lightning delay, 77 degrees, but also tailgate going to be a pretty warm forecast, somewhere in the upper 80s. Back here at home, the International City Festival will be happening on Saturday. This will be going on from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. over at Perkins Field in Warner Robins. So as the festival kicks off, partly cloudy skies, temperatures in the mid 80s, trying to warm up into the upper 80s, maybe near the 90-degree mark, just kind of halfway through. And then as you're wrapping up the International City Festival, rain is looking less likely the farther south and southeast that you go down. So I don't quite think the rain's going to hold up. And even given the timing of the front right now, it's probably going to be a little bit later after the end of the International City Festival. So hopefully a lot of the vendors that are out there participating in all the fun can have some suitable weather to pack up things and hit the road. And if you do come across anything, it really just looks like a stray shower that's going to be pretty short-lived. Now let's get into your weekend grill cast. So the one day that I do have yellow spatulas is going to be Saturday, because that front timing, obviously not the most opportune, mainly the late afternoon and evening time frame, of course, right when you would be firing up the grill. I think Friday and Sunday are still going to be suitable days. Obviously, if you have a bit of a rain shower, just wait it out for a couple of minutes, and then I'll think you'll be good to fire up the grill. But yellow spatula is just given the fact that we could have maybe a storm that tries to hold together, and that's mainly for our northwesternmost counties. So just proceed with caution. Most areas are probably not going to see anything on Saturday evening, hopefully in the way of rain. So I would trend more to having a green spatula there on Saturday, but for those areas that do have a bit of a messier forecast, I just want you to express caution, maybe wait it out just a little bit, or get the grill going in the afternoon as opposed to the evening before the rain does arrive. This may be one of the last times we get to show you your pool forecast. I say that and we'll probably be somewhere in the upper 90s as we go into next week. That's not looking to be the case, but just joking around right there. 89 to 93, that's kind of your temperature range this weekend. Of course, we're going to feel like the 90s each and every day. Mostly dry, but a few rain chances. And once again, it's mainly the late afternoon to evening time frame on Saturday. And then the only day the winds are going to be of note will be on Sunday. Maybe a northerly breeze around 5 to 10 miles per hour and the occasional gust up to 20 miles per hour. But I think that gust up to 20 miles per hour, that's going to be more likely as we go into the nighttime hours on Sunday and transition into early Monday. Many of you will probably not be out at the pool at that time, I do imagine, but temperatures will be pretty suitable for going and heading out to the pool. But we did have something happen as of the very last day of August. No, we didn't just move into the month of September, and no, we didn't transition into Labor Day, but we had our last 8 p.m. sunset. So sunrise, I meant to say sunset right there, is now at 7:53 p.m. and this is as of last Friday. So of course, the pre 8 p.m. sunset, you know, those days are getting a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter each and every day. But let's talk about some specific dates that you should be on the lookout for as we go into the near future. Obviously, sunrise will continue to get a little bit later each and every day, while the sunset does get a little bit earlier. So those hours of daylight are going to continue to shrink in nature. As of August 31st, we had nearly 13 hours of daylight, 12 hours and 51 minutes of daylight to be specific. The first day of fall, that will be on September 22nd, 7:22 a.m. sunrise, 7:30 p.m. sunset. So that's going down to about 12 hours, just over 12 hours of daylight. October 15th, we continue to see that window get smaller, just under 11 and a half hours of daylight. And then November 2nd, that's going to be when daylight saving time ends. And of course, 6:53. So obviously that sunrise got a little bit earlier because we're falling back. So you're going to gain an hour of sleep, which I'm sure everyone is mighty excited about. But myself personally, having an early bedtime and having the early wake up call to come in every morning and do the morning show, a 5:42 p.m. sunset, I know most people are not going to be happy about that, but I for one am, because it will finally be dark when I am hitting the hay and going to bed throughout the week or each weekday. But you will notice that obviously the sunrise does get a bit earlier, so we'll kind of get back closer to that 7 a.m. sunrise. In fact, just a couple minutes before the 7 a.m. hour. And that's going to be a good thing because we'll continue to get some great images of the sunrise on our morning show. But then the hours of daylight, they continue to go down, just under 11 hours of daylight. So 10 hours and 48 minutes of daylight as we go into the first day of standard time. So not going to have daylight saving time anymore. It has been taking effect since sometime back into March, maybe even as early as February. I don't even remember when we did spring forward, but of course now we're falling back, getting out of daylight saving time, and we will continue about that through the winter months until we transition into spring, and then we will bring daylight saving time back. So let's pick it up with your long-range models. Monday at 6 p.m. There's plenty of rain down towards the south off the Atlantic coast. Right now, hopefully that's not going to impact your forecast whatsoever unless you have to travel down to Florida for work. It's looking to be a very messy forecast down in the Panhandle state over the course of the next week. But up here in central Georgia, not seeing too much in the way of rain chances. The best chance that we have right now is just according to one model, and that's the GFS. Maybe some moisture kind of riding a little bit farther inland off the Atlantic coast. 8 a.m., maybe a few showers as you walk out the door on Wednesday morning. But overall, most of the rain does remain down towards the south of us and off the Atlantic coast, because that is where our frontal boundary moving through is going to kind of stall. And it's going to just continue to sprout rain chances along where that boundary does sit. Overall, nothing in the way of impressive rain chances look to be in the window for next week, and that is going to be very, very nice. Just some passing cloud cover associated with all that rain in the near vicinity. Hopefully we can keep it out of the picture and we can continue to hover not only below average, not only somewhere with plenty of dry air, but also kind of a stretch of weather where we do have some mostly sunny skies, or at least a dry forecast when you pair it up with some of those below average temperatures. So that front will move through as we go into really early on Sunday. The cooler and drier air will begin to filter in, like I showed you on the future view humidity graphic. So your morning low temperatures going to steadily go down, starting out in the mid 60s on Monday, 64, 64 for both Tuesday and Wednesday mornings, and then down into the lower 60s again on Thursday. Going to give you a bit more of a taste of that fall feel, not necessarily as cool as we were looking at as of the beginning of this past week, where we had some some areas dip down into the mid and upper 50s, but this is still going to be a very pleasant treat, especially for some of you cooler weather lovers like myself personally. Afternoon high temperatures going down into the mid and low 80s Monday through Wednesday, but then you start to see a warming trend as we go into Thursday. 86 on Thursday for a high temperature. Does it look like we bounce back to that average high of 90 degrees this time of year? Well, let's have a look. Taking a look at your temperature outlook, 8 to 14 days out in advance. So this is valid through September 12th, which is going to be next Thursday, all the way into the 18th, and not quite sure what day that is. I believe that's the following Wednesday. So probability of above normal temperatures is a lot greater over towards the west, but we are seeing some areas creep into central Georgia, a really good dividing line of probability of near normal temperatures and a slight probability of above normal temperatures. It looks like our high temperature is probably going to hover in the upper 80s, and around that time we probably will see the average high drop down to 88 or 89 degrees. So 90s are going to continue to become less frequent as we go throughout these next couple of weeks into September. And this does line up with your precipitation outlook. We're normally talking about these green boxes, which is going to be your slight chances of having above average rainfall. Well, it looks like we have a slight chance of being below normal in terms of our rainfall for that same time period. That would obviously make sense. If we're going to hover around average, we're probably going to have some clear and sunny skies, and that's going to make for some suitable weather, but still really on that dividing line of the very slight chance of below normal rainfall for this time period and the near normal chance right there that is outlined in the gray. So looking ahead, what do we have to look forward to or just kind of put on your radar? Peak of hurricane season, that will be happening next Wednesday or next Tuesday, I do believe. That will be happening on September 10th. We'll talk more about what that means coming up on the next graphic. First day of fall, we did mention it already, but September 22nd. So obviously many of you looking forward to the cooler portion of the year. And then once fall does ensue, you know the fair isn't too far away. October 2nd is going to be the first day of the Georgia National Fair. I believe it goes on until October 12th. And then we really start to settle into some of those cooler temperatures. Halloween happening on, of course, October 31st. But it's very nice to actually start to see these holidays towards the end of the year pop up on this looking ahead graphic. Eventually we'll add Thanksgiving. Eventually we'll add Christmas. So it gets into a very exciting time of year as we get into the Burr months. So September, October, November, and December. And pretty appropriate that the Burr months do kind of associate themselves with some of that weather that does make it feel a little bit chilly and makes you say Burr this time of year. So hurricane frequency, I did talk about the peak of hurricane season that will be occurring on September 10th. This just means all time since we started taking records of all of these tropical storms, these hurricanes, that the peak of activity all time has happened on September 10th. So that means the frequency of tropical storms and hurricanes is kind of at their highest once we get into that point. Tropics have been relatively quiet as of the past week here. We really saw an uptick in activity maybe 2 weeks ago in time where we had lots of areas of development. We had Hurricane Aaron riding up the Atlantic coast. Well, it doesn't quite look like maybe that will be a time frame that we're going to see the most areas of development, maybe potential hurricanes or tropical storms. The tropics are still in a bit of a lull, but remember last year, Hurricane Helene occurred in late September. That is the H-named storm, and we still finished the season above average. So just because you have had a bit of a late start to the tropic season doesn't mean that you can't see activity get ramped up in quite an instant. And obviously the month of October all time has produced some pretty strong hurricanes, and most notably Hurricane Michael back in 2019. Now let's go into the tropics outlook, and we only have one area to talk about, but it does have some pretty high chances of development. So this update as of 8 a.m. on Friday, 60% chance of developing into a tropical depression over the next 48 hours as of 8 a.m. on Friday, and then 90% chance of developing past that 48-hour window. I know it says the next 7 days. It is very likely that something it will form closer to the end of 2 days as opposed to the end of 7 days. That's really just to give you a chance of development past that 48-hour window. But right now, it's actually this cluster of some showers, maybe some thunderstorms that is continuing to move from the west off the coast of Africa. It's where this red X is outlined right now. And then this shaded area kind of gives us a general outline of the direction that this wave is heading. So if it was going up to the north, you would see this red shade go a little bit farther up into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Right now, it looks like this is going to continue to take a westerly path and pretty good chances of developing into our next named storm. And we haven't gotten a named storm since Fernan, and that was the storm that kind of followed a very similar path to Hurricane Erin, moved up into the North Atlantic Ocean. Fernan did not impact any land masses whatsoever, but that was our 6th named storm of the year, so Gabrielle would be our 7th named storm. And I would say it looks very likely that over the course of this weekend, we will get tropical depression or maybe even tropical storm Gabrielle. So of course, stay tuned with Ansley Parker and David Guerrero with their weekend forecast, and they will be keeping you updated if we have another storm out there. But right now, it doesn't look like that's going to pose any impacts to central Georgia. So we entered a new month. In the month of September, rain has been pretty hard to come by for the first 4 days at the very least. The one day we recorded rain was this past Thursday, and we only recorded 1/100th of an inch. But typically, on average, September is a pretty dry month. Forgot to change this over from August, but only about 3 inches on average of rainfall that we see in September all time. The record happened back in 2004, and that was a pretty active hurricane season, obviously the year before Hurricane Katrina occurred, but Hurricanes Ivan and Hurricanes Jean definitely brought us our fair share of rainfall, and I imagine that's what's contributed to the record amount of rainfall for the month of September all time at just over 12.5 inches. So for the year of 2025, August took the cake with the wettest month so far, 6 inches above where we should be on average for the month of August. September's been off to a dry start, and it looks like we're going to continue that dry pattern according to that precipitation outlook that we did have, but that is fine by all means because we are over 6.5 inches where we should be at this point of the year in 2025. This is as of September 4th. We'll continue to update this as we go about the last 4 months of the year. And your drought monitor. We are seeing some abnormally dry areas, these yellow shades, creep close to us in central Georgia. But as of right now, the entire area is drought free, and we continue to get these updates every Tuesday. They release them out every Thursday. Nothing to worry about, even if we do have these yellow shades, these abnormally dry areas creep into central Georgia. All you're going to need is a good cluster of some rain to really alleviate those conditions. But as of last year, we were talking about moderate and severe, maybe even getting into extreme droughts in portions of our area. So very thankful that we don't have to deal with that with all of the rainfall we have received thus far in 2025. So that's going to do it for your extended weekend forecast. Again, make sure you're staying updated over the course of this weekend with the latest forecast to see if we do get a new named storm down there in the tropics. Otherwise, I think this week is going to be highlighted by that brief warm up for Friday and Saturday, going to give you another taste of that summertime heat. And then after that, we're going to go back into a stretch of some cooler and drier air. Maybe not necessarily as cool and dry as we were this past week, but it still will be nice to get those numbers down into the low 80s, and especially pairing it up with low humidity. That is definitely a big time win as we roll into the second week of September eventually. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on 13 WMAZ Plus for your extended forecast Monday at 10:30 sharp.